Good morning. I hope that you got to watch a church service, whether it was yours or somebody else's, online this morning with your family. And I thought that if you missed Sunday school, this might be a great way for you to get a lesson as well for my littles. I know that everyone is stuck inside and it's not very fun, and this might be a good way to still remember that God is with us, and I have a special lesson for you just about that. But we always start our Sunday school with a prayer. So if you want to do your prayer hands, I will say the prayer, and then we will start from there. Dear God, thank you so much for letting us come together this way. Technology is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Lots of people are scared right now, God. Our parents are scared, and our friends are scared, and our neighbors are scared. Help us to remember that you are with us, even though we're scared. Help us to remember the right things to do while we are at home. Help us to be kind to each other when we can't get outside, and maybe when we can't do things that we really, really want to do. God, we want to pray for those people who are already sick. We want to pray that everyone in our family stays healthy and that those who are sick get better very, very quickly. Amen. So today I have 3 stories for you about people who were alone in the Bible, but they weren't really alone. So you will understand a little bit more. So first we're going to start with Daniel. Daniel served the king of Babylon, but other men were jealous of him. These men told the king that praying to God should stop. No one should be above the king, they said. Anyone who prays to God must be thrown into the lions. Daniel loved God. He prayed just the same. So the king's men took him and threw him into a pit full of lions. The king liked Daniel, and he was sad. He went to the lion's den, fearing that Daniel would be dead. But Daniel was alive. God saved me, said Daniel. He sent an angel to close the mouths of the lions. So Daniel loved God, just like we love God, and he prayed to God. But back in those days, there was a king, and the people thought that the king should be in charge, not necessarily a God. But Daniel knew differently, so he prayed even though people said you shouldn't do that. And what I love about the story is that the king loved Daniel. Even though the king should be above everybody else, he loved Daniel, and he was worried about Daniel. But he let the people decide his fate. He let the people say, nope, you need to throw him into the lion's den. And Daniel continued to pray while he was in there, and God came to him. So even though he was alone by himself, he was with animals, but he didn't have any other people in there. He prayed, and he was not alone. God stayed with him through the whole thing. So now we're going to do another story. This one is about a man named Jonah. You probably remember the story, but we're going to read it again. Jonah was a prophet of God. One day, God told Jonah, go to the big city of Nineveh. Tell them to stop doing bad things. But Jonah ran away. He did not want to go to Nineveh. Instead, he got on a boat to sail across the sea. God sent a big storm to stop Jonah. The sailors on the boat were afraid. They thought the boat was going to sink. Jonah told the sailors, my God has sent this storm. If you throw me into the water, the sea will become calm again. So the sailors threw Jonah into the raging sea. Instantly, the sea became calm. Just then, Jonah saw a big fish coming. Gulp! The fish swallowed Jonah. For 3 days and nights, Jonah was inside the fish. He prayed to God, please forgive me. Then God told the fish to spit Jonah onto the dry land. God told Jonah a second time, go and tell the people of Nineveh to stop doing bad things. This time, Jonah obeyed God. The people in Nineveh were sorry for the bad things, so God forgave them. So once again, we see a man who loves God being put alone. Now, he loved God, even though God told him to do something that he didn't want to do. And that happens to us a lot of times at home when mom says to do something that we really don't want to do. And we have a choice. Do we do it or do we not do it? And in this story, Jonah decided, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to run away. Have you ever run away from what mom or dad told you to do? They thought, well, if I go hide in my room, they won't notice me. Or if I go outside, maybe they won't find me and ask me to do that. Well, God is just kind of like parents sometimes, and then he can find you. And he found Jonah. And he sent a storm, and the sailors were afraid. And so Jonah said, well, this is my fault. So they threw him overboard, and the big fish, the whale, swallowed him whole, and for 3 days he was alone in there. There was, he was inside a fish, and maybe there was some other fish in there. I don't know, maybe some water, some turtles that were in there. But other than animals, he was alone. But he wasn't really alone, was he? God was with him, and he prayed, and he said, please forgive me. And after 3 days, the whale spit him back out, and he did what he was supposed to do. So our final story is about another man and some animals, and you've probably heard this one before too, but just in case, I'm going to remind you, okay? It's about a man named Elijah. Elijah had to run away from Ahab and camp near a brook. God sent birds to bring the prophet food. Elijah was a prophet of God, just like Jonah. When the brook dried up, God told Elijah to go ask a certain woman for food. I only have enough left for one meal for me and my son, she said to Elijah. Cook for me first, and you will be all right. And so she did. And God provided for her and for Elijah. The story continues on, but I want you to read this next part too. Even though the rain had come, the rain had been gone for about a year, King Ahab and his evil wife Jezebel still wanted to kill Elijah. Elijah ran for his life to the desert. He was so tired he lay right down and went to sleep. Soon someone tapped him on the shoulder. An angel had come to make Elijah dinner. The angel fed Elijah a second time too. Then Elijah was strong enough to make the long journey. So in this story, the prophet Elijah knew that there was going to be a famine. A famine is when there's not enough food. There was no rain. So rain makes crops grow, and that is where our food comes from. So he knew that that was going to happen, and he did tell the king. But what happens when people don't have enough food? Well, they get very cranky, and they get angry, and so when they found out that he knew, they chased him away, and people wanted to kill him. They wanted to hurt him, and so he was out in the desert for a very, very long time, all by himself. But what have we talked about? He wasn't really alone, was he? God sent a different kind of animal. Do you remember what he sent? He sent a raven. Now, a raven is a little black bird. Well, he's probably not very little, but it's a black bird. And the birds brought Elijah food in their beaks. They brought him bread in their beaks, and he fed him. And then later on in the story, we hear that he went further out into the desert, and he was alone again, but someone else came to feed him. It was an angel. So just like in the story of Daniel, when the angel came and closed the mouths of the lions, an angel came and gave him food, just like the birds. So once again, he was alone as far as people were concerned, but God was with him, and God is with us too. So we have learned that all three men were not alone, even though they didn't have people around them. God was with them. So let's see how much you remember from our story, okay? So I'm going to ask you a question, and you tell me which one is the right answer, okay? Which Bible character was fed by the birds? Do you remember? Elijah. You answered that. Good job. Which Bible character was punished by God? Only one was punished by God. Okay, let's see. Do you remember which one that one was? Jonah. And how was Jonah punished by God? He sent the storm, and then he had the big fish swallow him up. Okay. Now, do you remember this? Which one was supposed to go to Nineveh? It's a very funny name. Do you remember? Jonah. Jonah was supposed to go to Nineveh and tell the people there to be good. That's what God had told him to do. Okay. Which Bible character faced several scary beasts? You remember which one? Daniel. Do you remember what those beasts were? They were the lions. And who made sure the lions didn't eat Daniel? God sent an angel. Okay. Who did not go hungry? In which one of these stories did God make sure that they didn't go hungry? Do you remember? Elijah. Elijah had birds bring him food, and he had an angel bring him food. Okay. Which character actually had someone worried about him? It was actually a king that worried over him. Do you remember who had a friend on the human side, on the earth side? That was Daniel. And his king checked on him the next day, and he was so glad to see that he was okay. Okay. Which character was on his own for the longest? It might be a little bit tricky question. Remember which one that one was? Elijah. Elijah was on his own for a very, very long time. Daniel was in the lion's den for one night. and Jonah was in the belly of the beast for 3 days. Elijah wandered that desert for a very long time. Which one do you think faced the biggest animal? I definitely think Jonah faced the biggest. Think of how big a whale is versus a lion. Definitely the biggest. Who was not actually alone, but always had God with him? Oh, this is a trick question. All 3 of them had God with them. That was a trick question. All right, now let's see if you remember your animals. So let's match the Bible character with the animal. Okay, which one had lions in the story? Daniel had lions. Okay, which one had a whale in the story? Jonah. Good job. And which one had birds that they called ravens? Elijah. Good job. So that's our quiz for today. Now, usually when we are in Sunday school, we do a craft. And you're at home, and I don't know what kind of craft supplies that you have at Miss Barbara's house. We have tons of craft supplies, but you may not have as many. Now, if you do have paper bags, you can make a very simple craft. I made 2 different kinds. You could make a paper bag lion with a paper bag and some construction paper and a marker. Or if you don't have construction paper, you know what you could do? You could take white paper and color the pieces of the mane. And there is your lion. And see, he's a happy lion because God was with him. Now, if you would rather, or if you have lots of paper bags, you could make both. So I made a raven. And ravens are black, so you could color the bag black, or you could make some black feathers. Here are his little wings, and there are his feathers at the top. And I did some orange for his beak. So that would be a fun craft. Now, if you can make a whale out of a paper bag, I want you to send me a picture because I thought about it and I thought, how can I make a whale? So if you are super crafty at home and you want to make a whale out of a paper bag, you definitely have to take a picture and have mom or dad or grandma send it to me because I can't wait to see it. Now, if you do not have construction paper and glue and paper bags at home, I know you've got paper. You've got paper somewhere. You might have it in your binder from school, or I bet you've got paper somewhere. Maybe in the printer. Ask mom or dad or grandma if you have a piece of paper. And I would like you to make a card for someone who is home alone. We have people at our church that are 90 plus people. You might have a grandma or grandpa who is all by themselves in a nursing home. You might have a great grandparent. Or if you don't know anybody personally, I'd like you to make a card. And then I am going to share with your moms, dads, grandmas, an address that you can send that card to make somebody who's home by themselves feel maybe not so lonely. Because while you're home, you've got mom or dad or grandma or siblings or cousins. You've got people in your house. But some people in our neighborhoods and in our families, they don't have anybody. And with this thing where we have to stay inside, it's just them. And it might get really, really lonely. Can you imagine being by yourself all the time? There's no mom or dad to make peanut butter and jelly for you. And you might have some TV, but not a whole lot of it, and nobody's visiting. So I want you to make a card. And if you have, I know you have the time, so you can make both the bag and the card. And I will give you addresses where we can send those cards, okay? Or I'll have you send them to me and then I will send them, okay? So I want you to think about somebody else who's home all by themselves that does not have an iPad, does not have a phone, does not have Netflix, okay? So I want you to make a card for me. So I hope that you enjoy the story and you can go back and you can rewind those stories again. You can look them up in your Bible if you're bigger. I bet I will put some more questions at the bottom that if you're older that you can think about. I wanted to try to make our lesson easy for those who are younger and middle-sized and older. So if you're older and you thought, okay, well, these stories, I know these stories. Miss Barbara's going to get you because I'm going to have some bigger things for you to think about in the comments section, okay? So thank you very much for joining me. I'm hoping to do some more of these while we're in our homes and the church is closed. So keep coming back and I will give you some more stories and some more crafts. Be well.